Good morning. Today I am in Tallinn and I'm going to be doing some touring of Tallinn's communist past. I'm starting at this place. This is a little park that is set up to remember the Baltic Chain, a chain of 2 million people stretching from Vilnius in Lithuania through Riga in Latvia and ending up here in Tallinn in Estonia as a protest against the Soviet occupation of the country. So just to give this video a little bit of context, in 1918 Estonia proclaimed themselves an independent country, and in 1920 they signed a peace treaty with Russia. In 1939 though, Russia and Nazi Germany signed a treaty that would essentially split Europe into two spheres of influence, one under the Russians and one under the Nazis. In 1939, the Soviet Union compelled Estonia to have 20,000 troops in the country. It was a dangerous time with World War II starting, so the Estonians didn't really have a choice. They also only had 15,000 soldiers themselves, so the presence here of the Soviet Union was much larger than even their own military. 1 year after that, the troops that were here stationed from the Soviet Union incorporated Estonia into the Soviet Union bloc. So just when they thought things couldn't get any worse, the Nazis began pushing eastwards and invaded the country in 1941. And then in 1944, as part of the Soviet pushback against Nazi Germany, they re-invaded in 1944. From that point forward, the country of Estonia was incorporated proper into the Soviet Union and remained a member under occupation until 1991. And so that leads me to today's video, in which I'm going to be taking a walk around that period, that Soviet period from 1944 until 1991. I'm going to be having a look at some of the buildings that were built here in Tallinn, and I'm going to be talking about some of the things that happened during that period of time. I'm in another small park area just inside the old town, and this place was densely packed with houses during the medieval period, but in 1944 it was bombarded by Soviet airstrikes as they tried to defeat German troops and push the Nazis back. So I'm just about to leave this little park area now and move on to the next stop, but before I do, just wanted to show you these markings on the ground of where the houses used to be. There we go. So all of those markings were walls of buildings that used to stand here, and this is what it used to look like. So there's the church, and you can see the area I'm standing about here. All of this is now park area. There's the church. The bombing of Tallinn began in the evening of March 9th, 1944, conducted by approximately 280 military aircraft of the Red Army. Mostly civilian buildings were affected. At least 554 city residents and 171 soldiers and prisoners of war were killed. The centre of the Estonian capital sustained severe damage, with a total of over 5,100 buildings pulverised immediately or subsequently demolished. More than 20,000 people became homeless overnight. For the next 50 years, the Soviet authorities denied participation of Red Army aircraft in the bombing of civilian targets in Tallinn. You can't do a Soviet tour without looking at the KGB building, the secret police, if you will, that monitored and spied on as many people as they possibly could. The building is now private luxury apartments, but also you can visit the prison cells that are actually in the basement area. So these bricked up windows, that's where the prison cells used to be. KGB building was instrumental for the regime to keep control over people they suspected of being anti-communist. It's incredible just how much of the waterfront here in Tallinn is underdeveloped. It seems to be made up of either abandoned, broken down buildings or wasteland and car parks. Currently walking through kind of piece of wasteland really. There's not much here apart from weeds and mud. I've found a tiny little piece of beach with some nice golden sand here on the waterfront. So I am currently on the way to a prison that started off as a sea fortress, and it was built as a sea fortress in 1820, 100 years later. It was converted into a prison, and then during Soviet times it was used as the prison of choice by the KGB. I'm now approaching the back entrance, I guess you could say, of the prison itself. I don't think you can get in the building because they've closed it down because it's unsafe now, but you can get into the grounds, and this is how you do it. Although, it does look like there's an entrance here and a sign saying the prison's actually open. I might go and have a look to see if you can get in to explore further. Well, just had a little bit of luck. The prison actually opened up yesterday for tourists. So I've bought a ticket for €5 and I'm going to have a walk around and just see what it's like. What's pretty good is that you've got a lot of description about things that actually happened here, and also these are real accounts from real records. You can see names having been redacted to make them fit for publishing. This place hasn't been kind of done up for tourism. It's just been opened up, an abandoned building formerly. Now you can take a walk around and see for yourself just what it's like inside. This is one of the prison cells. There's lots of informative signs up that tell you about each cell and some of the prisoners that were here. And some prisoners here, I guess most of them, it would have been a justified prison sentence, but there were also many people here that were held for fabricated reasons. There was also a lot of people put to death right here in this building. Death row is just around the corner. Unlike in the West, when you're sentenced to death here, you're not given a date. You're not told when it's going to be. You are just brought into a room and then executed. It's all very quick. And this place is eerily cold. I'm just going to head now. I'm not sure what that is in there. This may be death row. Let's have a look. This is the maximum security block. Reading just some signs on the wall. Look at this. As I said, it's all broken down and falling apart in here. It is a real mixture of emotions being here, because you know on one side just how horrific this place was during the Soviet period when it was operating as a KGB prison, interrogating people, putting them to death on occasions. But it's also really good that they have opened up a section of it so that you can come and see for yourself just how gruesome parts of communism actually were. The building itself is, even though they have kind of placed a museum into this wing of the prison, they've still left most of it as it was back in the period of communism in the country. Paint is literally peeling off the walls. The doors are all broken down and rusty, and not only is it really cold because of the thick concrete walls, but it's got a very odd smell, kind of a rusty, very old, stagnant smell in here. I'm now in the prison courtyard, and this area features some basically prison cells that were outside. I guess most prisoners would have got some kind of relaxation time or exercise time. Some music playing from somewhere. And this is where they would have gone for their maybe hour a day, just sitting here in the courtyard. There's no chance they were going to escape. And then along the end here, I did see it on my way in, there is a big heavy duty door that blocks somebody, maybe just one person, into this very small area. I guess this was for people that were allowed outside but had perhaps done something wrong and were only given a very small area to relax in. As I may have said before, opening up a place like this is controversial because of all of the horrific things that happened here. But this sign here on the exit, I guess, kind of sums it all up. Remembering helps to prevent atrocities from happening again. I'm going to head outside now to the courtyard. And after a long day, I've arrived at my final stop, which is the Palace of Culture and Sports. It's a 1980 building that was erected for the Moscow Olympics. The Moscow Olympics, you would think, have everything to do with Moscow and nothing to do with Tallinn, but as it turned out, the sailing competitions for that Olympic happened in Tallinn, in the sea behind the palace. So this was built as a place to carry out some of those Olympic games and Olympic ceremonies. It looks a bit like a large Cold War type bunker. It's just a huge pile of concrete. There's no windows and it's relatively flat. So I'm going to take a walk around now and hopefully see it from all angles, and maybe even get the drone up in the air to show you some aerial shots. You can see maybe behind me the wire fencing is in front of the steps, so you can't access the roof from this side because it has fallen into, like the prison, quite a state of disrepair over the years. but I'm hoping that if I walk around, I'm going to be able to access the roof from the other side. So this would have been, I guess, the central plaza, the central meeting place, right in front of the theatre building. And I'm guessing this would have been perhaps the main entrance. It's now just a rubbish tip. Graffiti all over the place. The building has been boarded up so that no one can get in. I think inside it's in, apart from the roof, in pretty good shape. There are the steps that you would have used to enter, perhaps from the level above. Now, if you remember rightly, the 1980 Olympics in Moscow were boycotted by a lot of Western countries because of the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. The feeling as well was that Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia were all under a type of Soviet occupation. It wasn't their choice necessarily to be in the Soviet Union, so you could say that there was a double boycott and people stayed away for that reason as well. I'm told there was an ice skating rink in there as well, and this is a side entrance to the rink itself. Looks like a side entrance, and to walk a little bit further around, you can see one of the reasons why the building is now closed to the public. It's a giant section of concrete broken off. I've made my way to the front of the building, well, the side that faces the sea. I'm not sure if that is the front or the back, but there are a lot of people here, so I guess this is a good place to come and watch the sunset. That structure there is the helipad, which I really wouldn't want to land a helicopter on these days. It's supported by these pillars, but I'm not sure how good a condition that piece of concrete is in these days. But as you landed your helicopter, you'd be looking over this water feature. I can only assume it's a water feature anyway, that leads up to a grand entrance of the concert hall as it was used. I'm going to assume that this is the front because it is by far the grander of the two entrances. These steps that are in extremely bad condition these days. There we go. Poke the camera through there, you can see that weeds and plants and all kinds of greenery is growing on it, but also the concrete of the steps is broken down and damaged in quite a significant way. And then if I just come up here a little bit more, this is another nice little view of that water feature. I think there are some fountain heads in there as well, so I'm pretty sure that that would have been a pretty spectacular looking fountain in its day. Remember, the building was built to impress ahead of the Olympic Games, that the events of which would be held here for sailing. And then this is that central foyer area that I was just referring to. Let's see if we can get on the roof. Here we go. You can see the sea behind me. 2-hour ferry ride to Finland, Helsinki. I've climbed the 70 or 80 steps and I'm now right on the roof, the highest point. Well, while I'm on top of the concert hall, I thought I'd show you where the tour was going to end today. You're looking at the TV Tower here in Tallinn. It's about 6 kilometres from the city centre, and it was built for the 1980 Olympic Games, just like the building I'm on was. But the difference here, of course, is the TV Tower was built to improve telecommunication signals throughout the city. Also, while I'm up here, you can see the city skyline of the new town of Tallinn. In the foreground here, you can see a monitor. Well, it looks like a monitor. It's actually a huge building with an LCD on the side. Above that is a hotel called Hotel Viru. Now, that was the building where Westerners had to stay if they were visiting Tallinn. Tallinn was a closed city, but some Westerners were allowed in, and when they came, they had to stay in that hotel. The reason being, it was bugged by the KGB. So the KGB would be listening into everything that was said in that hotel. And on the top floor, there is a KGB control center where all the bugs would be listened to. That control center on the top floor is still there today. You can visit it as part of a museum, but you have to book a few days in advance. It gets really busy.
You say you're stronger now, that you've seen it all before. Will days are longer now, just be the same no more. You gotta keep on going, no matter what I say.
Unbelievably enough, it's now 11 p.m. I've been on the communist trail for the best part of 10 hours, 11 hours maybe. It has been a great day, very interesting day, a fascinating glimpse into a whole different world almost. But I'm going to head now just to catch some of these incredible colours coming from the setting sun just behind the camera. So thanks for watching the video, hope you enjoyed it. Good night.